संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। So we are toward the end of chapter 3, that is Karma Yoga. Says, what is it that, how the individual or the Jivatman or the soul gets completely deluded and sways away from its path. What are the reasons? That's being beautifully traced here. So you see the desire, because we always go back a few slokas to catch up. Because Arjuna is asking, Atakena priyuktoham papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojita. Prompted by what is an individual? Because essentially Sri Krishna was also telling him, and also the understanding is, we are of that infinite nature, birthless, deathless, eternal, Atman and so on. So, what is it that a person is forced as if against his own will to indulge in sinful acts? See, many other things, most of the people who do anything, we all know. Very rare. It's only in the animal kingdom they work just on instinct without knowing. And generally, they obey certain laws. There are very clear rules drawn regarding how they function, when they attack, when they don't attack, whom they attack. Everything is clearly set. But human behavior is totally unpredictable. And we are supposed to be of such extraordinary nature. That's our, we are of the nature of Atman, Satchitananda Swarup and so on. That's all we talk about. And how is it that, in spite of all that, how is it that we are forced to act in such a way? So if you examine, even many of the criminals, etc., after they are asked why you did it, they clearly concede that yes, we knew, but something, which is beyond them, beyond their capacity, beyond their ability, something that forces them. So most of the people regret often at various, even in our lives also you'll find quite often we regret why we did something. So that's why he's asking, what prompts a person to do things which are against his nature, sinful acts, as if literally forced. It was not out of volition, not willingly. Unwillingly, why human beings are drawn into the path of sinful behavior, etc. So in answer he says, this kama and krodha, desire and anger and lust, these are the reasons, and essentially they are born of Rajoguna. They are responsible for prompting man to behave in a sinful action. So it says, Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samudbana Mahashano Mahapapmo Vidhyena Mihaveri. So know this to be the enemy. Man's enemy means enemy for spiritual life. Normally those who are in the normal life, people are very happy with their desires, with their sufferings, with their plus, minus, sometimes this, sometimes that, sometimes success, failure, they're all happy. But if you have a very spiritual orientation or inclination in life, then obviously you find that there are obstacles. You are doing anything which is not according to dharma, which are sinful, which are not sanctioned. It's always a sense of regret. So he says why? It's because this desire and the anger. Because it's again dealt with very elaborately in the chapter 2. How does this desire also arise? How is it that See, desire and anger is same. How do they arise? That he has traced down very beautifully. Because you see, ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संकस्तेषु उपजायते संघात् संजायते कामः कामात् क्रोधो विजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृति विभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. Very successfully traces down how the total destruction happens. It says, by thinking of objects, a desire for them is created. Now, how do you think of an object? If you go even beyond that, because supposing you have never seen a rasagulla in your life, can you think about it? So the thinking happens because of the previous experience. That's why whatever you experience. See, the mind has different compartments or layers or man, buddhi, chitta, hankar. So this chitta is a kind of a storehouse. So it stores all memories, whatever you experience. And it is not just restricted to this birth alone. It is to all the accumulated births, a huge storehouse of all the samskaras, whatever you had experienced. So you have taken something, maybe now all in the childhood or maybe even in earlier. So then the senses immediately. So you think of that. See, supposing you are sitting here, but then you are thinking, oh, yesterday after Janmashtami, what nice prasad was given. And then the mind wants to again have it. So that is how it starts. So ये जब तक एक लेवल पर है, आप इसलिए मन से उसका रोक सकते हैं, then it doesn't get transformed into action. But then there are desires where it is uncontrollable. That is what happens when you go beyond. So what happens to people who get into the habit of drinking or drugs and all that? They know very well. In the normal time, if you ask them, they will clearly say that it's all totally harmful, their lungs, liver, everything is getting destroyed, they know. But when the urge comes, it's absolutely, they can't stop it. So that's why it says, when you think of something, and this thinking because of the previous experience that has got stored in your chitta. And also, generally what happens, this thinking can happen in many ways. One thing is you sit, because the mind is idle, you keep on wandering here and there, then it goes and settles on some object of desire, on object of enjoyment which you had earlier. Then it starts building on that. And then it becomes a very very strong desire, urge to fulfill it. Chalo abhi jaake dukaan se kharid lo immediately. And when that is not fulfilled, that gives rise to tremendous anger. That's why when people violate, when they are this thing and that, because their desires were stopped, they had become so much triggered by this idea of anger, and they commit even more heinous crimes like killing and this thing and all that. So that's why this Kama and Krodha are very closely related. And Kama arises because of the earlier experience. From that only it starts. Normally, otherwise, how do you develop a desire for a particular thing? Somewhere, sometime down the line in the memory, either in this birth, in your childhood, in whatever time, or in previous births, had such experience, it gets triggered either by, and also the senses, the various indriyas like eyes, ears, nose, and the tongue and the skin. Their idea is always to keep going outwardly, looking for objects constantly. And the eye takes a huge survey of a huge world. And then it settles on something which remembers. That's why the desires and the sense objects get linked. आपकी आँख से आप देखते रहते हैं 1000 चीज़, बहुत लोग जाते हैं आते हैं दुकान में, आपकी कोई इफेक्ट ही नहीं है. आप कितनी बार you are going through maybe a bazaar, there are so many things that you just pass through, they don't even make any impression, but suddenly something attracts you. आप पहले इसको अनुभव किया, पहले देखा होगा, पहले देखा नहीं मिला. Something is linked to your past experience and that immediately it settles there. So then there's a desire, I must go and buy it at any cost. अब देखेंगे नहीं दे जहाँ तक पैसा नहीं है, then इसे कैसे चोरी कर लूँ, कैसे ले लूँ, or somehow I must get it. All those things they develop. That's why he says, from that, by thinking of that, you get a terrible attachment towards that. And that attachment leads to krodha. Then from that, there is moha, delusion, and then loss of memory, and then complete buddhinasha. The intellect is completely swept away, and then you end up final destruction. So there are various gradations, various types of desire. There is something like kuch khana pina, to theek hai. And people go deeper into that kind of desires, and they get into that kind of gadda or hell or something, where that has led to total destruction. So that's why he says, Atakena prayuktovam papam charati purusha. How a person is led into doing something against his own even will or volition. In reply, he says, these are the things that drive a person. This kama and krodha, they are born of rajoguna, because they are sattva, raja, tama, the three gunas. And then he says, this, the knowledge, because the knowledge is, I am that supreme self. I am beyond desires. I am beyond birth. I am beyond death. I am beyond everything. I have no such limitation. I am not bound by anything. Milna to theek hai, nahi mila to nahi mila. But as against that, how is it that you become completely possessed by something, some desire, some action, some fulfillment? It's because the knowledge that you are that self, you are that supreme personality, that is completely covered. This lust or the desire covers the knowledge. So it talks of three kinds of covering. Just as fire is enveloped by smoke. Fire and smoke, they are always together. If you put a chimney, the smoke goes away, fire burns brightly. Or even if you blow away the smoke can go, the fire. So this covering is there, but it's not so thick or in such a way that it cannot be removed easily. This covering can go away easily. So he says this is the sattvika nature of covering. This also covers the true nature of the fire. The fire is not blazing, it's not burning so brightly because of the presence of the smoke. But this obstacle, this covering, can be removed relatively easily because of a sattvika nature. And then he says, Yata adarsho malinacha, just as a mirror that is covered by dirt. If the mirror is covered by dirt, nothing can be seen. The mirror will not be reflective at all, completely covered by dirt. Then you have to make effort to erase it. One has to put in a lot of effort to clean it completely, then it comes. So this is even more powerful, more thicker a covering than smoke covering fire. Smoke covering fire is a very mild type of covering. This is even much stronger, where you have to take effort to get it removed. So they say they compare it to Rajasic type of covering. And then even the more worse covering is, just as embryo is covered by womb, this case is a total, complete covering. Nothing is seen. Only when it is finally, when it's torn apart, only when the child is born, then only what is inside is known. Otherwise you do not know. So the covering is total and complete. This is the tamasic type of covering. So the desires, etc., they cover it in three ways. One is just a sattvic, or the very feeble or the mild type of covering, or the rajasic, which is more stronger and more this thing, or the tamasic type of covering is total or complete. So accordingly, the sinful acts are also in more dangerous and more cruel and drastic in nature. The covering is much thicker, maybe crimes like murder, etc., etc. Covering is lesser thicker, maybe just stealing or this, that. or the minor has some little desire for eating something which is satisfied also very easy. So the desires and the covering are of a different nature. So the thicker the covering, greater is the deviation from the path of knowledge or path of truth. When a person is completely blinded, but only people know, go here, go and take the gun and shoot somebody and kill and things like that, where the covering is total and complete, whereas completely swayed away by this idea of krodha, which again is coming with the desire. See, every act of krodha, anger, behind that there is some desire or other. Either to desire to one's superiority, being deprived of something else, whatever it is, you will always find that krodha is preceded by desire, kama. Otherwise, krodha does not arise. Well, why they are not respecting me? I am superior. Something or other. The desire to be respected, desire to have something, desire to possess something, desire to enjoy something, desire to simply kisi ko harapna, whatever it is. So always the krodha is behind that is desire. That's why they are always put together, just in twins, like they always come together. Probably in if you very deeply, subtly understand what Thakur always uses as Kamini and Kanchan, may also probably in a very subtle sense mean Kama and Krodha. Kama, desire, meaning the money part of it, Kanchan, and Krodha, anger, being the Kamini part. If you can go very deeply, subtly into understanding that, it's possible. So they represent that in that way, finally. Might be. So I don't know. So then he says, Indriyani manobuddhihi asyadishthana muchyate. What is the seat of all that? This desire, this, see, it says, Indriyani manobuddhihi. See, these are the three things. See, our reality, our thing consists of, say, these three layers. First are the senses, then the mind, then the intellect, then the Atman or the self. So the desires, etc., they take these three as the foundation. Because they cannot, when the self is there, it's fully aware. But less than that, the Indriyas and the mind and the buddhi, they are the seat of this desire, which dilutes knowledge, veils knowledge, and the spirit, embodied spirit, the Atman, which is encased in his body, is completely deluded. These three are the seat. Why? Because, you see, why there are three things. The first and foremost are the senses. They are the outermost. Supposing there is a huge team of dacoits, they have maybe several officers. One, the first outermost, there from that they send their first response whenever there is any chance of robbery. These are the people they are first sent. Maybe the censor, they are the first emissaries sent to perform. And then at the next level, the supervisors level of dacoit, they sit in this place what is called mind. That's at the next higher level that controls the senses. It's only through that the senses come and give the feedback to the mind. Oh, these are all available, we can loot all these, like that. So the mind is the next level. And then the still superior, the Sardar, sits in the place what is called buddhi, that the uppermost level. Because ultimately, it's the buddhi that has to decide whether something is to be. See, the indriyas, because of their contact with the sense objects, because indriyas each have, eyes have so many millions and objects for them, ears like that, nose like that, they all have their huge kingdoms. So they go on keeping, यहाँ से चुरा सकते हैं, यहाँ से लूट सकते हैं, यहाँ से हड़प सकते हैं, like that they keep on bringing the information to the mind. Mind then sorts out what is the priority, कहाँ पहले ढाकाती करना है, पहले बाद में कहाँ, all that. And then it goes to the buddhi, साहब देखो ये सब मिल रहा है, क्या चाहते हैं. Then the buddhi says, all right, go loot this first. Then the first, finally it happens. So these are like three different offices of the dacoit the team or the dal. So like that. So he says, that's why he says there are these three. So from these three levels they operate. So even so the point is, at various levels the restrictions can be applied, the restraint can be applied. One can escape at various levels. The earliest may be at the level of the senses. Even if they escape, even if the mind is little refined, it can happen. At least even at the buddhi level, it's still possible finally. So, niyamya. So it says these are the three where they veil the knowledge and make them operate and so on. And then next year, tasmat tvam indriyan yado niyamya bharatashrava papanam pradihenam jnana vijnana nasanam. So you see, the controlling the senses at the beginning itself. See, tasmat tvam indriyani adau niyamya bharatashrava. Though you are from the clan of Bharata, first what you do is, you first restrain the senses. That is the beginning. First you control them, because because once it goes beyond the senses, then becomes, supposing there are several walls of security. First, aftermost is you put the real strong guards, etc., etc. Now, supposing they cross that, then it becomes more difficult. They already breached one level, then they have come to level 2. So that's why he says, you stop them at the beginning itself, even at the outermost level, namely the level of senses. Don't allow the senses to go here, there, everywhere, keep on harvesting from everywhere. Stop them at the level of senses itself. That's the first and the foremost and the most effective way. Otherwise, once they breach the first level, it is even more difficult to control the second. And if the second level is even more difficult. When they breach the third level, you are gone, finished. You can't stop them at all. They will come and take away whatever it is. So that's why he says, Tasmat tvam indriyani adav niyamya papanam brajaihenam jnana vijnana nas. This destroyer of knowledge and realization, jnana and vijnan, वो दोनों को तो destroy करते हैं. You please kill that enemy. The desire, the enemy of desire is to be killed. That's the solution Bhagavan gives, because unless, that's why you see everywhere it's all religions. And Buddha also said, what is the basic truths of Buddhism when he started? Later on it became a very complicated maze of philosophy and so on. He said 4 noble truths. There is dukkha in this world, and the reason for this dukkha or tanha or desire. So desire, everybody says, because ultimately, if you all examine our lives, the whole life, all our sufferings, all our problems, everything, they hinge on this one idea, namely desire. Because we have desire, we suffer. Anything, any desire, anything. Good desire, bad desire, noble desire, very horrible desire, whatever it is. Desire is the root of everything. That is the basic root of all. That's why he says, kill that enemy which is destroying your knowledge, etc. Then he says, then also he says, what is the gradation? Indriyani parani ahuhu, indriyebha param manaha, manasastu para buddhe, yo buddhe parasastu saha. So, what happens? See, the senses, when they approach the indriyas, if you are completely, see, the senses, buddhi, mind, etc., by themselves they are nothing. Only when the light of Atman falls on them, they get the ability, they reflect, and that's why they function and all that. Now, because if a person is completely led by the senses only, then what happens? When the sense objects come before the senses don't have that kind of a power of discrimination, etc. When they see something, say maybe amriti or jalebi or something, maybe sandesh. It thinks only as an object of enjoyment. It loses the ability to see it comprehensively. लेना अच्छा ही नहीं है, for your health at that time, it's good or not. All those calculations it forgets. Simply then enjoy. So similarly anything, suppose it says a tiger or a snake or something, only that it will attack, it will kill. So it has only a very limited vision. It doesn't examine anything from a point of view of a witness, looking at things totally. Anything has a different dimensions. So how does it kill anybody? Does it harm anybody? Only one who attacks him or goes near him or something, only such a person is attacked. But all that is forgotten. So if a person lives only at the level of senses, completely is deluded from the other aspects. He normally, that's why this, if the light of Atman shines brightly, if a person is a person of discrimination and viveka and vichara, etc., whenever even if the senses bring any information of sense objects, then such a mind discriminates what is necessary, what is good or bad. Should we go for it or not? All that thing. Otherwise, if a Jivatman is completely, if embodied spirit is totally controlled only by the senses, then whatever it brings you take. You don't discriminate, it is good or bad, whether it is proper or not proper. Simply you want to gratify or satisfy the desire. So that leads to problems. So that's why here it gives a grade. Indriyani paranyahu. Senses are really, they are, senses are superior to sense objects, because sense objects are there for the enjoyment of the senses. So Indriyani paranyahu, they are great compared to the senses. But Indriyebhya paramanaha, superior senses in the mind, because they are all under the control of the mind. They have to report to the mind, karna nahi karna, mind jaise salah denge, upadesh denge, nirdesh karenge, they have to do like that. So mind is superior to senses. You can also see, supposing you want to do something, this is that. If you simply tell the mind, no, I am not going to do, then supposing there are so many things are kept right in front. They are very attractive. Nobody is there looking at us. So the hand wants to grab them, take them. But the mind says, no, you can't do it, keep quiet. And then the hand. So the mind has control over the indriyas. So mind is superior to the indriyas. Then manasastu para buddhi. Buddhi is even superior to the mind, because ultimately the mind keeps on, huge domain of knowledge, keeps on going, adding newer frontiers. But the information, what all can come to the mind is again brought by buddhi. Through buddhi only the mind gets information about so many other areas where it can go and expand and all that. And not only that, whatever the indriyas bring to the mind again sorts them out and takes them to buddhi. Then it is buddhi who has to decide whether this particular action is to be done or not. So there are various stages where you can really control or stop it. So buddhi, manasastu para buddhi, yo buddhi parasastu. Even superior to the buddhi is that Atman or the self, because all of them derive their existence, their capacity to function, that, everything from that Atman or the self. So that is the gradation they say. See, actually, evam buddhe param buddhva stamsabhyatmanam jahishatrum mahabaho kamarupam dirasat. Again, he has given that gradation. And he says how this enemy can be destroyed. He says, knowing that Atman, who is superior even to the buddhi, evam buddhe param buddhva, and controlling the lower self with the higher self. See, the mind, senses mind and buddhi together, they constitute the lower self or the inferior self of the personality. As you can say, higher self is the Atman, which is the light, which is beyond everything, whose reflection only helps all these function. So if you know that real nature, then, previously he said, you kill that enemy which is called desire. How that can be killed? Only through this. Knowing that, only with that complete idea, when it knows that you are that supreme, beyond. So, what exactly, finally, what is Sri Krishna trying to say? See, if you have to really be away from all these problems, difficulties, desires, suffering, etc., the only way is not to be completely swayed by the senses or the mind or the buddhi, rather go beyond, try to know your real nature. See, when the senses in their very nature, they are outward going. That's what we saw, Srikatopanishad says, na paranchikani vatrina swayambhu parang pashyati nantaratma kaschid diraha pratyagatmanam akshat avrita chakshuhu amritattamich. So, it says in the nature, indriyas are all created as to go outward, outward, outward. Eyes always see out, doesn't see inside. Ears always hear what is outside. Smell always what is outside, not inside. So all that is constantly, always outgoing, outgoing, outgoing is the nature of all that. So what is the way? Instead of that, turn them inwards. Turn your senses inwards. Go back. Try to know your real nature. Know who you are. What is your nature? Are we to be a slave to the senses? Are we to keep on? How many years? All your life you have been doing this. Is there any other way? Then what is the result of all this? Always some little happiness, so much of misery, suffering, disease, illness, separation, dukkha, misunderstanding at various levels, at the level of the body, at the level of the mind. Constantly the human being keeps on suffering endlessly. What is the way out of all that? Is instead of going everything outward, 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 know yourself, turn your gaze inwards, know your real nature. That's what would really ultimately, because how can one see, there is so much of things to attract you constantly. Indriyas have so many things. So if it keeps on going like that, there's no end to that. The only thing is, in one stroke, keep all that, go inward. Suppose you I will give up this, I will give up this, I will give up this. Then Sri Ramakrishna tells a beautiful story. One lady comes and tells her husband, see that neighborhood farmer is so good, one by one he is giving up everything. And this man, Arey, aisa hota hai kya? Does anyone really give up like that? I go this very moment. He puts on a towel on his shoulders and leaves house. So like that, there's millions. One by one, yes, today I will not take Amriti. Then Sandesh comes, something else comes, third thing comes. Today I will not drink this, then some other drink comes. So there is no end. So the only thing is, instead of going outward, turn it completely inward. Don't look at all that. Look at inwardly. What is my real nature? Why am I here? What is the nature of this life? Is there anything beyond this? What is death? What is birth? How to conquer all that? So when you go inwards only, then only slowly the lower nature of the personality, the buddhi, mind, indriya operated, that life will be completely controlled, because they will no longer be given that kind of a license, and then it will go and complete. See, somebody covered and gave a very beautiful example. I don't know whether we discussed it last time. Says, our human beings, we are like, like a mahout sitting on an elephant. So the mahout knows where the elephant is to be taken, where it has to go. So as long as the elephant obeys the mahout, there is no problem. It keeps on. But the elephant wants to take some banana from here, something else from there, something, it keeps on. Why? Because mahout has one intelligence. Say that is our buddhi. But then elephant has its own intelligence. It says, no, I want this. You may think I should go straight. I would like to take this and go. Similarly, he says, our buddhi, our intellect might say something. The body has its own intelligence. Body says, I want this, I want rasagulla, I want something else, I want to do this, I want to go to this place, I want to go. So, when the body intelligence doesn't obey the superior intelligence, and then there is chaos, and there is all this suffering, all these problems, all that come. So, it seems, in fact, more and more the neurosciences are all discovering each part of the body has certain kind of intelligence. Even gut has its own this thing. That's why something is agreeable, something is not agreeable. Every part of the body, every part of a system, they seem to have. So all these things, when they function in a coordinated way, obeying that ultimate master that is self, then the life is very orderly. But then each supposing there is a small team of people, if they all obey the supreme leader, and that's a beautiful teamwork, everything is done properly. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. So each person goes in his own way, and the whole work is completely spoiled. So in our life also, just as the elephant is its own intelligence, if the body exercises its own intelligence, whatever you say, you may have diabetes, you say, the buddhi may say, you don't take it, but I will have only sweets. Then you are gone. So, how this elephant, how it can be controlled? Only by training. When elephants are trained, you see, such a huge animal, for a simple training, it's like a cat, it obeys. Why? It has been trained. Similarly, that's why in the Gita, it's where Sri Krishna says, Abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena chagiriti. See, Arjuna is asking, Chanchalam hi manak Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Mind is, simply flying in all directions like air. How do we control it? Then he says, there are two ways. Abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena chagiriti. Abhyasa and Vairagya are the two ways in which it can be controlled. So again, the same thing is explained a little differently here. So Abhyasa is again and again, again and again, again and again, again and again doing. See, if you do anything, they say, if you do anything 21 days continuously, it seems it becomes a well-established habit. Supposing you say, get up, get up, get up, get up, daily, 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 21 days, then it becomes a established habit for a personality. I don't know, some of you can try. But then, the morning, the mind, the buddhi may say, no, you have to get up and meditate, but the body is you keep your alarm, keep it shut. I want to take more rest, I will get up later and do. So it disobeys. So, unless, you have the way in which you can completely handle it. So he says that is why you must know that superior nature of the intellect, the Atman, which is really superior, which is of the nature of that infinite, boundless, eternal, deathless, that is his nature. If you remember that, actually, this at various levels, these kind of things can be done. Even if one can, supposing, that's why they say, there are so many disciplines that are also talked about, even in Gita and all the scriptures in various places. One thing is, constantly think of that, discrimination. Viveka. What is it? Why are we going up there? What is the use of that? You have eaten. So many years you have done. What is it going to do? So, if you even do that, then slowly one can develop. How does one control that? See, knowing the lower self but the higher self, what is the process? Process is called discrimination. To do this vichara, to inquire, to find out. Viveka. What is this? Why do I do this? What is the point? How long am I going to do? Is all my life be spent this way? Is there better way of doing it? What are so many people, they are born, they die like that. We see millions. Am I also to go the same way? Or is there any better way? Once you realize that, and at that time, the idea called abhyasa, practice. It's not enough you discriminate, but then go the same way. No, let me start. Discrimination is okay. I start today. Make some effort. Again tomorrow. Again day after. Like that. Then slowly that becomes your kind of a real nature. Then you develop an interest. See, again, to do anything, you require, taste for that. Then slowly over a period of time, because, when the mind is completely given its freedom, then it goes here, there, in thousand directions. But if the mind is well organized, if it goes only in a particular way because it's been trained, slowly then it can control the indriyas, then buddhi will take control of it, everything is possible. So the whole secret is, he says, know your, in some way or other, try to know your nature and then work accordingly, and then slowly you can come over all that, and that is how this can be done. Actually, why all these are so much discussed in this chapter on Karma Yoga? Because now all these form part of action. So one thing is, in other yogas, there is a yoga of bhakti is there, yoga of meditation is there. There, there's no action. But in an action-filled world, when we are constantly engaged in action, you may do this, you may do that, you may do something else. There are so many options. So because constantly your indriyas are being exercised, so that is how here they say one has to be careful, otherwise one can be simply blown away by the circumstances. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.